Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, we're still talking about this poor lady, Nancy Guthrie. What has happened to Nancy? Where is she? What happened that night at her house over there in Tucson, Arizona, when this person, whoever it is, turned up at her door? Who are they? Who is this person? And despite the fact that this CCTV was taken, and I do think we have to presume that there is more CCTV, this person still has not been identified. And the things that are being said from people who have sources within the police department is that there is still no suspect. That still they do not know who this person is. How can that possibly be? How can that possibly be that they still do not know who this person is? They still haven't identified a vehicle, from what we can gather. They're just no further on, really. In fact, anyway, that's how it feels. Hopefully, that's not the reality of it. But this is what's been said, that there still is no suspect, and they still do not know who took this lady, Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, who took her from her bed in the middle of the night. And what we're going to talk about in this video, or so I took the last couple of days away from talking about this, and I've just been watching a lot of different podcasts and reading about it, etc. And I'm starting to think that the whole crime scene was completely staged. How can it be that this woman was taken in the middle of the night from that house? What we're going to look at, we're going to look at a Brian Ensign video where he goes around the back of the house with an ex-police officer from Piedmont County, to have a look at the access from the back, because, they're saying now that the back doors were propped open. This is what Savannah said in one of her interviews, in her last interview. The back doors were propped open. So it sounded as if they either came in through the back or went out through the back. But when we have a look at this video that Brian Ensign made, you think, how could they possibly have gone in through the back, or certainly not been able to bring Nancy out through the back? Don't forget, Nancy's mobility was limited unless they carried her out. Why were the back doors propped open with plant pots? You prop a door open when your hands are full, don't you? I've done it many times. You're taking stuff out to the bin or doing whatever, and you don't want the door to blow shut on you, so you prop open the door with something, and so that you've got your hands free to carry whatever it is you're carrying out. So apparently that's what they did, or he did. We don't know if it's, we still don't know if it's just one person, or if it's a gang of people or two people. We don't know. But anyway, somebody propped the door open, and now Ashley Banfield is saying it was with plant pots, with Nancy's plant pots. She got quite angry about that in her video. I've noticed with Ashley Banfield, since she came off News Nation, she's just doing her individual podcast now. Her language has got a lot worse. It's quite funny, really. She's like she's got the free rein to get angry. She was very angry about the fact in her video that this twonk had used Nancy's plant pots to hold the doors open. Plants that like Nancy had probably looked after for years. You know, she was probably liked pottering around the garden. You know, as you get older, that you know that it's limited the things you can do, I suppose, in gardening or keeping plants and things is one of the things that you can do, and it makes your environment prettier. And anyway, Nancy's plant pots were used apparently to prop open the back doors. So why did the prop open the back doors? So these are my questions. So you've got the back doors propped open with plant pots. You've got a virtually inaccessible way of coming up the back. We're going to look at Brian Enton's video. He did a video showing us the back of the property. How they don't, and also him and the guy from the you know, knows the area, they got lost. They were in the daytime looking for Nancy's house at the back way of, and they got lost. And how would somebody in pitch black darkness, why would they choose that way to go in anyway? And if they did get in through the back way, people were saying that maybe Nancy even left her doors open or at least unlocked at the back, possibly. But then why is there blood on the front porch? So the blood is on the front porch. Nancy's blood, and it is Nancy's blood. It has been tested. So you've got blood on the front porch. You've got the back doors propped open. You've got an inaccessible back way, or practically, you know, you can't imagine that somebody would try and come in that way in the dark unless they knew the area very well. So this is what I'm coming down to. So then you've got Savannah saying that Nancy was taken out in her pajamas and barefoot, and we don't know how she knew that. Has she seen, is it because her slippers were still there, all the shoes were accounted for? Or has she seen a video or been told that there is a video of Nancy being carried out in pajamas and barefoot? And then this talk about her begging for mercy. How does she know she was begging for mercy, or is she just imagining that in her head? Anyway, my personal opinion now, I think the whole scene may well have been staged, because now Brian Enton also is saying, that source of his is saying that the inside of the property was immaculate. Immaculate, that's the words that are being used. No sign of blood inside the property, nothing disturbed, except for the fact that Nancy had disappeared. So, you know, if you put all that together, you wonder, is this a completely staged crime scene? Whatever happened to Nancy, did it not happen there? And the thing is, if it is staged, and anyway, I do feel that this is somebody who knew Nancy well. And I'm not talking about the immediate family. I know that the immediate family have all passed polygraphs and been cleared by the sheriff. And it could be anyone who knows Nancy well. I just cannot believe that somebody who did not know the house, or if they don't know Nancy well, they know the area well, they know the house well. You know, for some reason, they've been to that house before. They knew that it was Nancy they were going for. You know, always intending to take Nancy, and, you know, whether those 2 kidnap notes that Savannah seems to think might well have been genuine, were genuine. Then people are saying that one of them was an apology because, you know, it seemed like, did something happen to Nancy as she was being kidnapped before that, you know, and that's why there was no proof of life ever given. Anyway, this is what we're going to chat about, and I'm going to show you those videos. That's what we're going to talk about. First of all, I just want to say thank you to you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you to those of you who sent Ko-fis or super stickers, PayPals, etc. And all of you that send me emails and leave nice messages. Thank you so much. Hello, lovely lurkers. I hope you're all well. Hello to Replay crew. I hope you're well too. And somebody said hello to me in chat. Somebody's up at this ungodly hour. Hi, old hippie. Yeah. Now, I don't know how you cannot believe that a body can just disappear. A person can just disappear like that. Anyway, I was watching something else that was saying about how big Pima County is. It's such a huge area. She could be anywhere, couldn't she, I suppose? Or even in Mexico. That's the other theory, isn't it? I mean, literally, poor Nancy could be anywhere. And we're looking at nearly 2 months now. We still don't know. I still think it would be helpful if they could release the clothing that Nancy was wearing. If they know, of course. I mean, maybe there were regular pajamas that she used to wear. Would that be helpful? You know, if we had some idea of what she might have been wearing, you know, just, I mean, the thing is, I'm sure her family knew the type of pajamas she would wear. You know, they could put up some examples at least, you know, for people to watch out for. Anyway, of course, the other thing in this case is the complete SHIT show that we've seen from Nanas. He's going to go, I think, one way or another, but I don't think he'll go voluntarily. I think he'll have to be pushed. He'll cling on for as long as he can. God knows what's going on behind the scenes there at that police department, and that is a shame because it has taken away from everything. You know, this is about Nancy, not about Sheriff Nanos, but that sort of, it feels like Pima County was just waiting for a reason to get rid of Sheriff Nanos, and then, of course, this case has happened, and it probably will see the end of him. Okay, so where we're going to start here. So, yeah, so the back doors apparently, according to Ashley Banfield, and credit to Ashley for her video talking about it, the back doors were propped open with plant pots. Now, why? Why were they propped open? Were they thinking that they would go out that way? You know, originally, were they thinking, did they come in through the back door and then were thinking, so before they even went into Nancy's room, did they prop open the back doors then, thinking that's the way they were going to take Nancy out? Well, as I say, this video I'm going to show you in a minute. You can't, why would the back way is just, I don't think they came in the back way. I really don't. As I say, I think the whole thing's staged. And then if then I don't understand why there's blood on the front porch. Otherwise, is somebody and where has that blood come from? Was it Nancy having a nosebleed? So apparently there's no, the inside was immaculate. There's no evidence of assault inside. And then if that's true, why from the very first night that Sheriff Nanos went there, he said it was a crime scene? If the inside of the house was immaculate, as Brian Enton is now saying he's been told it was, why was Sheriff Nanos right from day one convinced this was a crime? Because originally it might not have been a crime. It could have been anything. It could have been Nancy wandering off, or even though they say she was mentally sharp, she might just have had a stroke even. She may have had a stroke and been disorientated. So, don't have to have senile dementia to wander off. So you could have a medical episode. So why was Nana so convinced it was a crime scene? Was it because of the blood on the porch? But it wasn't enough blood for someone to be dead. It's I do think, did somebody put that blood there to confuse everything? That's how I'm starting to think. That's a good point, old hippie. Who is to say that Nancy herself didn't prop open the back door? Maybe that's something she did when it was hot. I don't think it was hot that night, though, was it? But having said that, yeah, it's perfectly likely that Nancy quite often left her back doors open and propped them open with plant pots. I mean, to me, when I look at that property, it seems like the most unsafe property to live in as an 84-year-old woman on your own. No fence around it, no wall around it. Because even if a person didn't come in, isn't there coyotes in that area? You wouldn't want a coyote in your living room, would you? So, and there's rattlesnakes and, there's critters, isn't there? Jabalinas or whatever they're called. So, it's possible that Nancy left her doors open. That's what Savannah said, that often she would leave her doors open. But to me, I look at that property, oh my God, I would not feel safe there at all. Now, even living with somebody else, I just, and there's certainly no way I would leave my doors open. Now, I know Nancy had lived there a long time and people either get complacent about their neighbourhoods and things. But it was an area where there were often men on the bloody, there were often men on people's porches. We've seen loads of videos of people, suspicious people on people's porches and looking around and in their yards. So why it's not a safe area? She must have. No area is that safe anyway. And she had cameras. So maybe it was the family that made her have the cameras. Old people are stubborn. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You could just imagine Nancy going, "Oh, I don't need all that. I'm fine." And maybe when the family tried to convince her to move into a smaller place, no, I'm staying here. She was comfortable there. She'd brought her family up there. She'd lived there with her husband. She'd been widowed for so many years. She'd been widowed since she was 46 years old, nearly 40 years as a widow. And she wanted to stay in that property, but it wasn't safe. I mean, you can just tell by looking at it, it's not safe. Even not, maybe you wouldn't expect to be kidnapped, but people were walking in, taking your jewelry, taking your purse, or as I say, animals coming in. She may have propped the doors open herself, but thing is, because her mobility was bad. I mean, does anybody know? Let me know if you know. What was the temperature that night? Was it the sort of night where you might go swimming in the middle of the night? Because she had a pool, of course, right outside. And if it was very, very hot, that's what you do. If you're lucky enough to have a pool in your back garden. God, I'd love to have a pool in my back garden in the summer here in July and August, but that's the only time that I'd want to go out in the middle of the night and to go out in the middle of the night and swim in a swimming pool. It'd have to be really hot, wouldn't it? I don't know what temperature it was that night. I don't know if anybody knows, but so I think let's have a look at so we're going to have a look at the Brian Ensign video where he shows us the back of Nancy's house. And to me, there's no way these people went in through the back unless they knew that area so well. and I mean really well. I knew when I say that area, I mean Nancy's house. This is what whoever has done this, I think they know Nancy. They went deliberately for Nancy, and I think it's staged. The crime scene is staged, in my opinion. Just I can't understand what it could be. So let's have a look, make sure this is sharing. You've had a heat wave. Yeah, so it did occur to me, is it possible that Nancy got back from Tommaso and Annie's, and she was all, she wanted to have a swim before she went to bed. I just don't know what Nancy's habits were. I mean, if she had a nice pool out there and maybe it was warm, and she just, it makes sense to me that somebody might go for a dip in the middle of the night, because I've done it myself here in Spain. I haven't got a pool in my garden, but if I've been staying I've got friends who've got pools, and if I've been staying at their house and I've woke up all hot and bothered and I can't sleep, I've quite often got into the pool at 2-3 in the morning or whatever, and it's lovely to be able to do that in the heat of the summer. Of course, I mean, you wouldn't do it now; it'd be freezing. But, yeah, did Nancy do that? So anyway, there's Nancy's property. There's the pool at the back. So you can see that the back there is surrounded by this rough terrain. So don't forget, there's snakes, there's coyotes, there's everywhere, there's prickles everywhere because of the cacti, etc. It's such a rough terrain that it's difficult to take the dogs there. It's a very difficult place to take cadaver dogs and things, to look, because they're going to get hurt, they're going to get thorns, they're going to get prickles, etc. So if somebody did go in that back way, and I'm not saying they didn't, what I'm saying is they must, and it was pitch black, and you'll see in a minute Brian Entin and the guy that shows him the way around there, they get lost. They're finding it difficult to find the way in the daytime, and the person that's showing Brian Entin knows the area well. So all I'm saying is, if somebody did go in through the back way, they had to know it well to go there in the pitch black, don't they? And it would be dangerous for anyone, and how they would get Nancy out that way to me just seems impossible, unless they literally carried her. And you couldn't get a car to the back there. The car had to be at the front. If they put her into a car, it had to be at the front. You couldn't take a car in all this. Anyway, let's have a look at this video. Tell me what you think.
Specifically what kind of doors they were, and I wanted to get a close look. I always just assumed that it was sliding glass doors back there. I don't know why. I just assumed she had sliding glass doors. That is actually not the case. And when you look at the drone video, you can see they are just regular doors on the back side of the house. There's two that are like, one is underneath the overhang.
Sorry, another thing is, even if she didn't go out for a swim, if it's hot at night, she might have wanted to go out and sit outside. That's another thing that I quite often do here when it's really hot. Go and sit up on the roof terrace just to get out. It's just fresher in the night. Sometimes it's just so hot, even with the aircon and everything, it's difficult to sleep. I don't personally like aircon either, so I don't like, then you wake up with your teeth are chattering, you're that cold. So I try and avoid using aircon. I've got fans. I prefer fans. But quite often I would go and sit outside in July and August when it's really hot. If I couldn't sleep, just go out, get a bit of fresh air, because it's cooler at night, obviously. So Nancy might have propped open the doors with the plant pots just to go and sit outside and have a cup of tea or something. I don't know. I've done that before.
There's one kind of to the side of the patio area. So there's two right there. And then there's one over near the garage door. So from what I could see with our drone, there were a total of 3 doors on the back side of the house. One seemed like it was connected to the garage, though. 2 that were connected to the house. And what was interesting, again, they're not sliding glass doors. There are windows on the doors that I could see, kind of like pane glass windows on the top. And again, it was Savannah who said that doors, plural, were propped open when Savannah's sister Annie and her brother-in-law Tommaso arrived at the house. Before I get into more on this, let me replay for you exactly what Savannah said so you can hear it if you missed it.
We thought that she must have had like some kind of medical episode in the night, and that somehow, the paramedics had come because the back doors were propped open, and that didn't make any sense. We thought maybe they came and there was a stretcher and they took her out the back, but her phone was there and her purse was there and all her things.
So that was what Savannah said. And obviously her saying that the back doors were propped open opens up a lot of possibilities here, leads to a lot of possible come in through the back doors and then go out through the front. And you're going to see in this episode, I'm about to take you with Bob Krieger again, who is the former SWAT commander for Pima County. We go to the backyard area of Nancy's. And I mean, you can just, and you're about to see it in detail, but I mean, the thought of them really traveling through this area, or especially going through this area behind the house with Nancy, is kind of hard to imagine because there's so many thorns, there's so many cactuses that she couldn't even walk to the mailbox.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they went the back way. As I say, we're going to see the video anyway, but I just wanted to add that the other possibility to me is that the intruder was already in the house when Nancy was brought home. Now, we don't know, do we? I don't think we know. Did Tommaso actually walk her into the house? Or did he sit outside in the car and watch her go into the house until the garage door closed behind her? Then he drove off. Or did he actually get out of the car, help her in? We don't know that, do we? Maybe this thief, if it was a thief, he could have already been in there. Maybe he did break into the house while Nancy was not there. And then she came home earlier than he expected. Is that a possibility? I don't think this guy went in through the back way. I think what you said, old hippie, is perhaps more probable. Maybe it was Nancy who propped open the back door. Maybe she just wanted a little bit of air before she went to bed. And why is there no sign of assault in the house? So we've got blood on the front porch, but no sign of assault inside the house. So that almost suggests as if she came to the front door and was attacked as soon as she opened the door. Did somebody come to that door who she knew? Maybe not, I'm not talking about Tommaso, I'm not talking about Annie, etc. I'm talking about just somebody she knew who maybe came to the door. But would that not be caught on the camera as well? So it's a real mystery, this case.
Days, Savannah said, it's hard to imagine her being able to walk through this back area, or even them being able to carry her through this back area. But again, I mean, so did they go in through the back of the house and then come out through the front of the house? We don't know, but there's a lot of interesting theories to talk about. So let me play for you my full interview as we kind of walk around the house with Bob Krieger. Again, he was he was with the sheriff's office here in Pima County for almost 3 days. He was the SWAT commander. To kind of go.
Hey, Joanne, good to see you. Yeah, not seen you for ages. Good to see you. Hope you're well.
Through some of this, and I want to play that for you. Thank you for meeting up with us, Bob.
No problem.
So we're at a neighbor's house. If you'll just kind of lead the way.
Sure.
I just want to see how close we can get and show people. People don't really understand the terrain back behind Nancy's house.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
Now, what we have to remember as well, what they're doing when if the perpetrator, if the perp did it, it was pitch black. You know, what they do in this video to find their way to Nancy's back garden, to the back of Nancy's house. They're doing it in the daytime. Imagine that's pitch black. You'd have to know that pretty well to take that chance. You'd be bumping into things. You'd be tripping over things. There could be coyotes. There could be jabalinas. There could be rattlesnakes or whatever. It just straight away I looked at it and I thought, would they really do that? I mean, I know that, thieves do things like that, but it just seems to me, I just can't see how they could do it.
Apparently, this is now rattlesnake.
Yeah, they're starting to come out. It's a little early for them, and you'll see there's pathways that a lot of neighbors put up. This is usually just common area, common ground, but we're back here and you can't even see her house necessarily. There's just a bit or so. Let's see, my guess is very.
Now look, as I say, daytime, they've got to look where they're going. How could you walk? Now I know he had a little torch. Maybe the torch, was showing his feet where to go. But then, of course, be careful of making light, because any light would show up so much, wouldn't it? Because it's an area where they're not allowed to have lights because of the light pollution. Using the torch would be taking a chance, wouldn't it? Be taking the chance that you're going to get noticed, and it negotiating all that terrain. Look at the size of these cacti. Now, as I say, it's funny, the terrain here in Arizona, it reminds me so much of Spain. Honestly, there's a place not far from me. I might go there, actually. I could go there and have that as the background and say I was in Arizona. I'm here, boots on the ground, reporting on the Nancy Guthrie case. You would not know that. I wasn't really there. The mountains in the background. No, but it's so similar. The terrain is so very similar. The only thing we don't have here, we have cactuses, but they're not as big as those. I mean, your cactuses are definitely bigger than our cactuses. But imagine falling into one of them, tripping up and falling into one of them cactuses. I can't see that they went in this way, and certainly not that they were planning on taking Nancy out this way.
It would be more unlikely for just a person to walk back here, whether they live here or trying to get through the neighborhood, just because it's really difficult. And I am watching out for snakes as we're going.
So the snakes
they normally do, they've been a lot more active.
No, yeah, jabalinas, we have them here, old hippie. We have them here as well. You could just even near where I am, not far from where I am, because where they've been building houses and things, they've the jabalinas have had to, they're jabalinas here in Spanish. We've got them as well. We've got jabalinas wandering around. A friend of mine was out walking his dogs one night, and about 5 of them just started running down the road in front of him. They're quite big as well, So, I always wonder where they go when it rains and everything. I'm always expecting to see one on the road and that. But I have never seen one out on the road. But a friend of mine, yeah, about 5 of them when he was out walking his dog late one night. So yeah, we even have javelinas. The terrain there and the terrain here in Spain. As I say, I could go out. I might do it one day and say I was in Arizona. Nobody would know the difference. It is so similar.
So they might start waking up around now too.
Have you seen any have you seen any this season yet?
I haven't yet, but I've seen a lot of pictures.
Yeah. And do they, I mean, again, I'm from Florida. So
Yeah.
do they bite people regularly? I mean,
Not, you have to really try to get bitten. Even if you
Just makes me laugh, Brian, because you can tell he's really worried about the rattlesnakes. He keeps asking about, oh, you know, he is terrified. But he's got alligators in Florida. I mean, I think I'd be more scared of an alligator. But having said that, of course, rattlesnakes, if they do bite you, is it a fatal bite? Or I suppose you have to go to the hospital immediately. But as this guy says, they would do anything to not bite you. I mean, the thing is, these things, they're not like crocodiles who want to bite you because they want to eat you. The rattlesnakes, they'll bite you if they have to, if they feel threatened, I suppose. Now, we have snakes here as well, but we don't have any poisonous snakes. We have grass snakes, but they're massive. I have seen quite a few snakes around the campo. Literally huge. The campo is the Spanish word for like the countryside, and they are huge, these grass snakes, if they're allowed to grow to their normal size. I saw one crossing the road literally in front of me once. I was going down a windy road, this massive snake winding its way across the road from one side to the other, because the road I was driving on is right in the middle of a load of campo. I've seen them when I've been walking the dogs. A friend of my son's once, he was like, you know, we were all walking the dogs, and he jumped and nearly landed on top of one. You know, so we do have snakes, but we don't have rattlesnakes, thank God. Don't think well, I know we don't have any poisonous snakes here in Spain. We have scorpions. Old Hippie mentioned scorpions before. That's another thing you might find there. And we do have those here in Spain as well.
almost step on them, they don't want to bite you because they don't want to waste their venom. I worked in a unit that we lived in the desert for almost 5 years, and we'd run into them all the time, and no one ever got bit.
So do you think there's a possibility that this came, be careful of those cactus, guys.
Yeah.
Came through this back way?
It's possible, but I don't really think so, because you see it, like, unless you've probably already lost your sense of direction.
I have.
In just a few seconds back here. So, you know, you use things like telephone poles and things like that. But really these open areas just butt up to the backs of houses. So if anyone's ever back here, you're...
Now, thank you, Joanne, for the super sticker. That's very kind. Thank you. And I agree with you, Joanne. It was too big for Nancy being on her own, but from what the family have said, she wanted to stay there. As I say, I think sometimes old people can be very stubborn. You know, they want to stay in the property that my mum and dad were the same. My dad would not move out. They would not move out of their house, even though it was too big for them. And they would have, it was a council house, which is like, you know, I don't know where it'd be in your country, but state, you know, owned by the state, if you like. And if they had a 3-bedroom house, and once, you know, they were on the more elderly, they would have been given a nice little flat to swap and then give up the 3-bedroom house to put a family in there. And my dad would not move. He would not move, even though it was a big upkeep for him, especially when he was looking after my mum when she was ill. So, you know, people are stubborn. They want to be independent. Now, having said that, my mum and dad's house was nothing like Nancy's. To me, I could not live in Nancy's house. I just couldn't, even with dogs, even with, living with somebody else, you know, even if my son was living there as well. I just could not do it. I would not feel safe. Or at least my bedroom would be like a fortress, so that if anybody did actually get in the house, there's no way they would get in my bedroom. That's for sure. Once I was in I couldn't sleep knowing that everything was so open like that, and I would feel so vulnerable. So, of course, Nancy had lived there for many, many years. Probably felt safe there, but I just don't see how she could, because there were robberies in the area. There were robberies, and that's why everyone had cameras, or a lot of people had cameras. I bet a lot more people have got cameras now than had them before. So apparently, yeah, there's been a big demand for more security cameras since this incident. You're just not, no boundary around the property or anything. It's all just open. So as I say, even if if it wasn't a person that came into your house, what's to stop a jabalina coming in your house, or a coyote, or a rattlesnake, or anything, So yeah, it wouldn't be for me that I could not live there. I could not even sleep there. I just couldn't. Now, this is interesting, because as this guy has just turned to Brian Ensign and said, "Oh, you're probably disorientated now." And it turns out he's disorientated as well. Now, this is a guy who knows the area, he used to be on the SWAT team. He knows this area, and he got lost as well. So that's why I can imagine this scene, and then this is in the daytime and they got lost. How would you, unless you knew that area so well? It's almost as if they'd have to have a trail of crumbs to find their way to Nancy's house, like Hansel and Gretel, wouldn't it? Otherwise, how could you possibly find your way at night time around all this terrain to the back of the house? I don't see how that can have happened.
You need a lot of dogs alerting, and you're gonna have to really probably shoot through someone's yard. So it's not like a lot of normal, like back east areas where you have alleyways and it's kind of common.
Yeah.
So
no one would normally come back.
No. She's got a brick house. I think that actually might be right there.
No, that's not it. Yeah, see, even you're confused. It is confusing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's this way.
He says, "I think that might be it there," and Brian's going, "No, that's not it." I mean, if he doesn't know, how is anyone supposed to find their way through all this?
I think we should follow the poles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was looking at the drone, we're actually not as close as it feels.
Okay.
The poles. Well, at night you wouldn't be able to see those poles, would you? So how did this go? I mean, tell me, am I wrong? How could somebody find their way to Nancy's house? Unless they really knew it well. I mean, really well. But even though that guy knew it well, he was going the wrong way. Just seems ridiculous to me.
Do people ever, I mean, when you were working at the sheriff's office, did you ever respond to calls in spots like do people hide in areas like this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You say, if someone was, they were trying to burglarize the house and deputies showed up, they would get out here, and this is where we typically find they'd come in there like this, whatever it might be, trying to work a dog. And this is what a lot of homeowners do. They'll just come back here and kind of throw some stuff up and try and turn it into a walkway or something. Who knows?
Hopefully we're not. Maybe. Do you think? Although I don't want to go in anyone's backyard.
Yeah. None of the good thing is none of this is backyard.
So this is all public?
Yeah. It's a utility easement. Pull up the map real quick.
Voices.
So this would also show you that if someone used it back here, they would have had to come out a couple of times. They would have had to be familiar with wherever to get through here, wherever they parked.
Yep.
And we're again not easy out of the neighborhood, so just a little more.
So I think we're at.
Yeah. So,
They've got to look at at Brian's phone to find their way.
so let's see.
That's right there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. This actually I think might be. Oh yeah. This is the house that CBS was using.
Okay.
So now I know exactly where we are.
Does your gut tell you that one of the suspects would have come back through the back way, like through here?
No, I really don't think so. At night, even if you're really familiar with the area, it's going to be tough to traverse, even though it's not real thick. Even though it was a fairly moonlit night, it's tough. You know, you have to know where to park at. You're probably going across someone else's property to get to an area like this that's open. Then you have to get to Nancy's house. Ultimately, if you take her, bring her out the back, and there's no way they're bringing her back this way. You know, so if they got there that way, they clearly had to go out to the front.
Yeah, because we know the back doors were propped open, according to Savannah. Is there any way you think they could have brought Nancy out this back way? It seems kind of impossible.
No, is possible? Yes, highly improbable. Just based on her size and the weight and carrying someone, getting over walls. Just you saw
Cactuses everywhere.
Yeah, you saw it was just for us to walk through her by ourselves. Imagine trying to carry someone either by yourself or with the help of somebody. It's not easy, and so I don't think the back way would be practical at all. And it's not going to be quick, and it's going to be loud.
Yeah,
you're going to get more attention at 1 o'clock in the morning in an area like this than you are walking up to someone's front door.
Wasn't the front door actually broken open anyway? Wasn't it? I've got so confused with this case. There's just so much conflicting information. You can't get your head around how they got in there and why was nothing disturbed. So in another bit, we'll have a look at that in a moment. So in another Brian Entin video, he's saying that his source, and he seems to have a good source there at the police station, at the police sheriff's office, is saying the scene at Nancy's house was immaculate. That's the actual word. So where was Nancy assaulted? Was she assaulted at the front door? How can the scene be immaculate with no sign of, this is what I'm thinking, it seems to me, was it staged?
When people have dogs here,
sure,
and I'm sure that they're not used to people being back here, so
especially at that time of night. Yeah. So you're going to get all the dogs in neighborhood barking, kind of going off and things like that.
Did you hear there was one dog that's by and the owner around the time that Nancy disappeared, the dogs wanted to go outside? Yeah. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
And they were looking in the direction of Nancy's house.
Yeah.
And they never wake up in the middle of the night.
It would make sense. My dogs, if someone walks, I live in a very similar neighborhood kind of.
Hi, Darren. What was I just thinking then when he was talking? Now then, so there's part of me thinking this scene was staged. And then I think, well, if it was staged, would it not be immaculate? Would they, if somebody was trying to make it look like a burglary gone wrong, would they have gone through drawers and left a mess, like deliberately to make it look like that? So then I think that, but I think people are really struggling to reconcile the fact that the back doors were propped open, but the blood was on the porch at the front. Those two don't go together, do they?
So because it's usually very quiet. So the littlest thing on a lot of dogs, they're going to alert to it. And we've used that, officers use that. If you're chasing someone through an area like this, you stop and you listen. If the dog's over there barking, I'm going that way because that's probably where the people are going. So it would make sense. Very quiet, very established for a two.
So this is Nancy's house. Now, you know, just as I say, sorry, to me it just looks completely unsafe. You know, you can walk right up to it. There's, you've got a little bit of a wall there by the look of it round the pool, but you know, you can access it easily from the front. Look at these great big windows and sliding doors, and that's the guest bedroom. I mean, could they have been hiding in the guest bedroom? You know, could that? But surely the police would know that there'd be some DNA in there. But you know, were they hiding there in that house, waiting for Nancy to come back? Were they already in the house? I don't know. But all I know is, if I could not live in that property, either on my own or with anybody else. I just couldn't. It'd have to have a big wall around it. But you know, even walls don't help. You know, I've got several friends actually that have got big properties like that. One in particular that I'm thinking of, she's got a big wall around her property, a pool. But sometimes the problem with the wall is, once they're over the wall, nobody can see them, so they can do whatever they want with impunity. Once they, you know, if they've not been seen scaling the wall and getting over there, then that's it. They're hidden, you know, and they can do anything. And my friend, her son, who was sleeping, you know, late as sort of teenage boys do, he was literally asleep in bed and woke up to someone battering down his bedroom door and coming in and asking him where the money was. You know, can you imagine that for him, how traumatic it was? Because, you know, my friend, she has a business, quite a good business. And, you know, the thing is, word gets around. People knew that she may have money around the house or whatever. And yeah, this poor lad, he is literally asleep in bed and woke up to a gang, really, breaking into his bedroom and asking him where the money was. Anyway, after that, she had all cameras installed. That was pre-cameras. So now she has all cameras installed, you know, all over the house and everything. But I don't know if I could still live in the same house after that had happened. But yeah, you can look at that, and to me, I look at that and I just think unsafe. You know, I can't even look at it and think, oh, what a lovely house or whatever. To me, that just looks like I can't imagine feeling safe in that house. Too many windows, too many doors, too open. Poor Nancy. But the fact still remains: how did they get in there, and how did they get Nancy out of there?
Neighborhood, it's one probably the oldest ones, you know, built in the 60s or 70s. So with that, you get a lot of the brush that you see. You know, you go to a newer neighborhood, the cookie cutters, you just don't get this type of vegetation that's had years to grow. And you know, you see it's a lot of houses offset road fairly. What's going on, and that's why people here. It's a more
nice
private
neighborhood.
It's gorgeous.
I don't think it's a nice neighborhood. Sorry. Now, yeah, that's a good point. Oh, they did. There was talk in the very first instance of blood. Was it on the lamp or something? And in the hallway. That's it. We hear so many different things. Now, I've got to add a caveat here. This is Brian Entin saying that his source has said it was immaculate. The officialdom, if you like, Sheriff Nanos, FBI, etc., they have not said that the crime scene was immaculate. This is Brian, you know, and no disrespect to Brian Ensign, he's normally quite good with his sources. But yeah, this is not Sheriff Nanos or the FBI saying that the scene was immaculate. Nothing makes sense in this case because there was definitely talk about blood in the hallway before. Also, let's not forget that Sheriff Nanos, right from day one, said this was a crime scene, and if it was immaculate, why did he say that? It just doesn't add up, any of it. The only thing that suggested it was a crime scene then, if the inside was immaculate, is the blood on the front porch. But let's face it, it wasn't enough blood to suggest that Nancy was dead or been shot or whatever. So it was, and this is before they had the CCTV of the guy going in there. Why did he think it was a crime scene right from day one? Right from the Sunday when he did his first press conference. It wasn't really a press conference, when he spoke to the press outside Nancy's house, I think it was. He said it was a crime scene. Why? Because Nancy could easily have just, cut herself. And maybe she did have a medical emergency. Maybe she had a stroke. Maybe she did wander off, or maybe she phoned the 911. Though that's unlikely that she would have. I'm sure the first people she would have rang if she had a medical emergency would be Annie and Tommaso. But they checked all the hospitals, didn't they? And that, so, but I think, originally they were probably thinking that it was some sort of medical emergency. But nothing adds up. Nothing adds up, and we've had so much conflicting information. Why did Nano say it was a crime scene immediately, and now Brian Enton's sources saying that the scene was immaculate? It just, nothing adds up with this case, nothing whatsoever. And maybe it won't until it's solved.
Yeah, the reason people love it made it harder.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. They've got cameras, but like the cameras at this house right here, they're not going to see us right now. We got too much brush in the way.
Savannah has now said that the back doors were propped open, and when her sister and brother-in-law arrived, the doors were open in the back. What does that mean to you? What does that piece of the puzzle mean to you?
Probably the way they got in, if not out as well. My hunch is they probably went out the front door because of the blood that was found out there.
It all comes back to this blood. Where's it from? Well, we know it's from Nancy, but when is it from? Why is it there? You can see it's not enough blood. Nancy would still be alive after she'd lost that blood. That's not blood. That's not enough blood lost to kill you. And that blood didn't seem to be on the patio with the photos of the guy. When the CCTV of the guy, you couldn't see that blood on the patio. And why didn't, it has been a complete mess, this, hasn't it? Because why is that mat still there? This is a crime scene, supposedly. And not only they reopened up the crime scene, didn't they? But they didn't even take the mat. The mat's there. There's blood around it. Why was that not taken off for testing? I'm not even a detective, but I know that. I mean, it's all right, Nano saying, "No, I'm not going to listen to people who've never worked a crime scene." Well, we might not have worked crime scenes, but we've seen enough crime videos to know what you're supposed to do. And I mean, true crime. I'm not talking about, CSI or whatever. I've watched enough true crime videos to know what the police do. The FBI, what they test. They test everything. When somewhere's a crime scene, they take everything. But they didn't in this case. They left that mat there, even though it was surrounded by blood, for God's sake. It's just ridiculous.
Unless that happened right away and she happened to open the front door for him. But if they were propped open, obviously that was left for a reason. Quick in and quick out, whichever one.
You used the word propped open. I guess I was wondering why would doors open?
No, I'm sure the neighbourhood isn't so bad, but you know what? It only takes one night, one person. People are wandering around that neighbourhood. People who want to steal things. they will go to nice neighborhoods. They're not going to, that's where they're going to lay their hands on things they can sell and take away. They're not going to go to some impoverished neighborhood, where nobody's got anything. They're going to go to these rich neighborhoods. That's what they do, or more wealthy neighborhoods. That's what they do. So, and it only takes one night. You could be safe there, like as Nancy's been safe there for 40 years. And then one night she was plucked out, and taken away. Only takes one night, one bad person. Could be safe for 30 years, and then one night you get unlucky. So that's the way I look at it.
Depending on what your plan was, for me, it's a quick way in and a quick way out. Just one less thing you have to think about, opening the door. You don't want it closing behind you and maybe automatically locking and you not know how to unlock it to get out. It's a time thing. You want to plan your ingress and egress, and that's a way of doing it. And then that way too, you know exactly where you're going. You don't kind of get lost in the house. You kind of see and remember where that open door is.
Do you think that they brought Nancy out the front and that's why we saw the blood there?
I think so. My hunch, my theory is that's probably what happened. It's unfortunate, but I bet if you polled this neighborhood, 75-80% of them have an open door most nights. Whether they forget to lock it or, like a lot of us, just they leave it unlocked because it's not that big a deal. And we feel safe in our homes, especially if you've lived in a house for 40 or 50 years. Yeah. That is your castle, and that is your ultimate safe feeling point. And so you just never know when something like this is going to happen. And it kind of makes you reevaluate, just the overall safety and security of everything.
Savannah's saying that that her mom was in her pajamas and didn't have shoes on. Mm-hmm. What did that mean to you?
That's someone who's going to bed, or at 1 o'clock in the morning was in bed.
Yeah.
She wasn't expecting visitors or guests, and wasn't expecting on going anywhere. So I was asleep and I was awoken by this for whatever reason it was. And I think most of us would have been in that situation. I don't put shoes on if there's a knock at my door. You just kind of go and check what's going on.
I wonder if they carried her out, because it's not the kind of area you would walk without shoes.
No, absolutely. I don't think they would be too concerned about what her feet.
Yeah. Now, the fact that they're saying now that Nancy was barefoot, he goes on to say here that he doesn't think they would be concerned about Nancy's feet. But I think they would personally. I think if they were going to make her walk, they wouldn't make her walk. That, in my opinion, no matter who they were, if they were kidnappers, they still, they want her to be okay, don't they? Because they want a ransom from her. And if they lived in that area, they know that it's not an area that you walk around with bare feet, is it? It's not pavement. It's not, comfortable to walk on with bare feet. There could be snakes, there could be scorpions, there's certainly stones and cactus. So I don't agree with that. I think if she could have walked out of there, they would have let her put her slippers on at least, or some sort of footwear. So it makes you wonder, could she have walked out there, or did they carry her out just because it was quicker, rather than wait for her to put her shoes on and walk out? I don't think they would have made her walk out there without any shoes on. Personally, I don't think that. But, who knows? Why would they have done that? See, the thing is, and the other thing, it's not as if you say, no, it's for speed and getting her out quickly. They were in there 40 minutes. 40 minutes they were in that property. So they weren't in and out just like that. What were they doing for 40 minutes? This is something that I think we keep forgetting. 40 minutes is a long time to be in the house. Is that why the crime scene was immaculate? Were they cleaning up? Were they cleaning up everything? But would there not be some evidence that there'd been a clean up? So, yeah, they weren't rushing in and out of Nancy's property. They were in there for 40 minutes. So that's plenty of time for her to get her shoes, get her medication, make sure she would. Because if you're kidnapping someone for a ransom, you want the ransom money. So you've got to think of their welfare up to a point, You know when you're kidnapping an 84-year-old woman, her health's not going to be good, even if you didn't know the ins and outs of everything, even if you didn't know she had a pacemaker, those more sort of intimate details, even if you didn't know that, you would know that she's 84 and she's not likely to be in the prime of health, is she? So if they were in there 40 minutes, what were they doing for 40 minutes? What were they doing? Just strange, isn't it? And now they're saying the crime scene was immaculate, so they weren't making a mess then, or were they clearing up a mess? But I honestly, I'm leaning now towards, I think whoever took Nancy, I think they knew her. And this is not what it seems. It's all been arranged to be confusing, in my opinion. I do think that's what it is. I think that when we find out who's done this to Nancy, I think it will be a big shock.
Were like on the way out, but at the same time, again, my theory, my hunch is she was probably carried out. They'd probably restrained her inside some way, and as they left, they just carried her. It's one person job. It's easier with two of you, but 150 pounds or so, from what I've been hearing, is about what she weighs. Dead weight's not easy to carry. If you've never tried to do it before, most people, you can't just throw someone over your shoulder. But if you have a partner, you can't. Once you get, it's relatively easy. So, we've seen some of today already.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how hard it is to carry a body. I didn't until someone.
Hi, Mark. Hope you're well. Yeah. Now Brian's going on to say about how difficult it is to carry a body, and yeah, we don't know, do we? But the only thing I suppose. I've never had to carry a body, of course, but the only thing I can even liken to it, and it's nothing like it, but when I go to the supermarket, I buy a great big sack of dog food, and you have to sort of, if I haven't got my son with me to help me lift it, so I can sort of push it out the trolley into the boot of the car. Then when I get it to the house, to get it into the house again, if my son's not around, I mean, he can just lift it with one hand, and what will that be? I think it's 10 kilos. Will it be 10 kilos? I don't know. But I have to drag it along. I can't lift it, but I can drag it up the steps and drag it along the floor into the kitchen. That's the only sort of thing I can think of that I would do anything like, So yeah, you would drag, if it was a bodies normally get dragged, don't they? Nancy wasn't, I don't know what she weighed or whatever, but even someone who's quite light, a dead weight is, exactly that, isn't it? Weighs really heavy. So even if she was only little Nancy, it's not easy to carry a body. Now, if there was more than one of them, of course, they could carry it easy. But then what a lot of people do, of course, and what we hear about a lot, they put them in suitcases, don't they? Bodies get put in suitcases and then get wheeled out. It's just horrible to think of. But then you think, wouldn't there be marks on the ground where somebody had been wheeled out? I don't know. It's bamboozling, isn't it? This whole case.
Kind of explained it to me. Like,
no,
it's awkward. It's
even dragging that amount of weight. If you don't know what you're doing or how to do it, you're probably going to hurt yourself, and it's going to be like 2 inches at a time. It's not an easy task. There's a science behind it, and once you know, that's relatively easy. So again, things that you can find on, like everything else, YouTube or the internet.
Well, there's a science behind it, and once you know what it is, it's relatively easy. It's giving everybody tips on how to move bodies. But yeah, at the end of the day, you would Google it these days. Everybody, imagine it having on your search engine how to drag a body. Oh dear God. Well, of course, a lot of these idiots, they do have things like that in there. You know, a lot of twonks when they're caught, they do have this search history, don't they, of how, you know, how long does it take a body to decompose, or, you know, how to move a body, or best places to hide a body. People do Google twonks like perps. They do Google things like that. It's crazy, really, when you think about it.
Somewhere, how do I carry someone? How do I, you know, get them off the ground easily? It's all body mechanics. It's easy once you know how to do it, but if you don't, which 99% of the population doesn't, like you said, it's not easy.
What else did you take away from Savannah's interview? I mean, do you think it's going to help?
Yeah, I do think it's going to help. The biggest help I think it's going to be is that it's keeping it current. It's keeping the people around in the neighborhood, nationwide, worldwide, with their eyes a little more focused on it. And again, I think that sooner or later someone's going to see something, hear something, remember something that maybe I guarantee there's people in Tucson who still don't know this is going on, just because there's folks who don't watch TV, don't follow it, and they're like, oh my God, that reminds me of that woman I saw 2 months ago, and then they call it in.
Yeah, we always, that's it, you know, we assume that people will know. Some people never watch the news, don't take notice of true crime, even in their own area. Sometimes things happen, even in your own area, that you just don't know about. You know, I've noticed that because, you know, obviously I'm interested in true crime, and that's the whole point of this channel. But, you know, as far as like my family's concerned, and most of my friends, to be honest, is just like, you know, if I even mention like a famous, you know, to us, this would be a high profile case, or even the case of Nicola Bulley and things like that. Very unusual that they go, what's that? You know, Nicola Bulley was an exception moment because my family lived not far from where Nicola died. And they had heard of it, but that'd be like, oh yeah, that rings a bell. You know, they didn't. Most people don't take interest in things like we do. As far as true, you know, true crime is a what's the word? It's just like if you're not interested in football, you know, if somebody mentioned to you the football scores from last night, you wouldn't have a clue, would you? So it's just the same. You know, it's what you're interested in and what you're not interested in. So he's right. There'll be loads of people out there, maybe even who have got information, but they don't even know that they've got information because they don't know about the case. They don't watch the news. They don't watch the telly. You know, there are people out there who don't, just don't. So hopefully there is somebody out there with some information that will come to light.
So that's how it's going to help. You know, I keep saying I hope someone has the compassion for the family to just say, at least, hey, this is what happened. This is what's going on. So they get what they need. But at the same time,
So to answer your question, how do they know they were in there 40 minutes? I think that's the time lapse between, what is it, from when didn't they say, it's something to do with the Google cameras anyway. It's something to do with the cameras. There's a time lapse of you know, that they think they were there. Now, there's no doubt we haven't seen all the CCTV. They may even have CCTV or door cam footage or Nest footage of them taking Nancy out the front door. Though, had they already taken the camera down by then? So it's something to do with that. There's a reason they said it for, in fact, I think it was 47 minutes. You know, but trouble with Sheriff Nanos is you can't believe anything he says anyway. People doubt him. Let's see if I can find out how they know. Yeah, 41-minute window. They stayed in 41 minutes. Apparently, let's have a look at this. Just a short Fox News. Now, don't forget, this is what Nanos has said. This is, according to Nanos, and we can't believe Nanos always, can we, sadly? Let's have a look at this. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was it. It's the pacemaker. That's how they know how long they were in there, because it's the time in between the time on the Google camera as they went in, or that perpetrator was seen outside, and the time that Nancy's pacemaker was disconnected, because probably because it went out of the area, it disconnected from the app thing. That's how they know it was 41 minutes. Yeah, yeah. Now I remember now. I was thinking, how did they know that? But that's how they know. It's the time between when the perpetrator was caught on camera and the time that Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from the app, suggesting that she'd been removed out of the area. Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. I've not seen this little interview before, but that's a very good point. So they're in the home. They know there's a camera outside because they've disabled it. They've gone in the home. There are cameras inside, but they weren't working. How did they know they weren't working? Why did they not take those cameras off? They knew they weren't working, didn't they? This, I tell you, whoever has done this to Nancy, they are very closely associated in some way with that home, with Nancy. It could be a member of extended family. It could be somebody who's been to the house to do work in there. And maybe Nancy said to them, "Oh yeah, don't worry about the cameras. They don't work." Just we don't know. But they were familiar enough to stay in there 41 minutes and not worry whether they would be caught on security cameras. It's odd, isn't it? You know, they to me as well, personally, as they walked up to the camera, they look very comfortable to me. Very comfortable. It's hard to explain. I don't know what I expect a thief to look like. More shifty. They were purposeful. They knew what they were doing. They held their head from the camera. They knew about that camera. Though I don't really understand why they had to take it. What the purpose of the flowers was. I don't know why they didn't take a towel with them or something to take that down. But yeah, there's much more to this story, much more. And I think when the truth comes out about it, people are going to be shocked. I think it's somebody local, close to the area. They know the area. I think Nancy is close by, local as well, wherever she is. This is my opinion. I know there's the Mexico theory, but to me, I don't believe it. But, some people do. I think she's close by there. We haven't even got a vehicle. Is the reason that there's no vehicle being identified because there was no vehicle? Maybe not. Maybe they walked there. I mean, you just don't know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's where we are still. Still, we don't know what happened to poor Nancy. Uh, will we ever find out? Well, I'd like to see the back of this guy, first of all. I think if anything good comes out of this case, it will be the removal of Sheriff Nanos, who, let's not forget the complaints against Sheriff Nanos are not just because of the Nancy Guthrie case. People were already complaining about him, but it's just given, he probably would have stayed under, if this Nancy Guthrie case wouldn't have happened, he would have stayed under the radar until he finishes his term. But I don't think he's going to get to the end of his term. And I can't say I'd be sorry because he's just done too many things wrong, isn't there? And there too many people don't like him. It's like, as I've said before, if somebody gets criticised publicly, and someone like a sheriff, politicians, etc., there'll always be people that will criticise them. But normally then somebody else jumps in and says, oh, no, he's really good and blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Nobody has defended Sheriff Nanos from what I can see. His deputies, 300 of them voted no confidence in him. They've got the recall situation started off. So, it's hard to feel sorry for him because, from what you can hear about him from everyone, I'd love to see somebody stand up there and say, no, Sheriff Nanos is a brilliant sheriff. It's just not happening, is it? We still don't know who this guy is. We don't know if he was working alone. We don't know if he's working with someone else. But I think 100% whoever he is, he knew that house intimately, or, reasonably intimately. Anyone who comes to your house to do some work would know your house intimately. Come and do something and it's, oh no, don't worry about that camera, it's not working, or don't worry about that door doesn't close properly, or watch the dogs, don't let the dogs out, etc. They come to your house, to your home, to do some work, whatever it is. Or to come and give you a pedicure, give you a manicure or a massage or whatever. They come into your home and they know it, up to a point. So I do think whoever went in there to Nancy's house, they felt comfortable in there, comfortable enough to stay 41 minutes. So anyway, as always, every day I say maybe we'll get some news today. Maybe today will be the day. Of course, all the streamers have returned there to the scene. Once Brian Ensign went back, they all followed him because they think that Brian, he gets inside information. So they probably think he went back to the scene because he thought something was going to break. And maybe something will. Let's hope so. This poor lady and her family, they need their minds put at rest one way or another. We need to know, even though it doesn't seem like it's going to have a positive conclusion, any conclusion has got to be better than this. Not knowing where this woman is must be torture for her family. So I'm just still praying. I think about Nancy a lot. And that's why I had to switch off as well for a couple of days, a little bit, because you get this, it's an overwhelming sense of sadness, and anxiety, from this case. Okay, that's it. I'm off. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And as always, prayers for Nancy, and may your God go with you. Bye.